Welcome to Just Energy Radio with your host, naturopath and medical intuitive, Dr. Rita Louise. We have learned from Einstein's theory that matter and energy are one. Physicists believe that all systems in nature have their own particular way of vibrating, from the swinging of a pendulum to the waves of the ocean to the light that brightens the sky each day. Each of these oscillates at its own unique rate. The same holds true for every thought, feeling, event, or word we speak. Each has its own frequency or rate of vibration. What many of us don't realize is when we take everything in our universe down to its simplest form, it is all just energy. Join Dr. Rita Louise on a journey through time and space where past, present, and future collide. Today, what you believe may be called into question. What we want to know is, who made up the rules? Be brave and step outside the box. We are about to turn our world upside down and venture into the unknown. Hold on. We are departing our own beliefs and entering alternative realms. Enjoy the possibilities.
Hello and welcome to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show today. Well, an interesting mix of guests we have today. In the first hour, we're going to be speaking with Dr. Mory Pressman about finding your twin soul. And then we're going to be taking a huge departure from that. And we have Richard Dolan on talking about AD. And I don't mean like AD as in ADBC, but after disclosure. And we're going to be talking about what would the world be like if the government disclosed the fact that there were extraterrestrials. Should be an interesting conversation. But don't forget, Just Energy Radio is brought to you by soulhealer.com, where you can find out about all the services I offer, including medical intuition evaluations, energy medicine and energy healing, as well as psychic consultations. You can come in and see me in my Dallas office, or we can work by phone. And again, all that information is at soulhealer.com. It's also brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com, where you can learn to become a medical intuitive or energy medicine practitioner. Do check out those two sites. And while you're surfing around and checking things out online, do go to the Just Energy Radio website, www.justenergyradio.com, and sign up for our weekly newsletter where you can be kept informed of all the great programming we have coming up. You can also access our over 5 years' worth of archives that are stored on that site. A couple of quick announcements before we bring Dr. Pressman on to talk about finding your twin soul. And it's a little early, I know, but, tickets do go on sale or are on sale. October 6th and 7th, I will be at the Central Texas Paracon in Austin, Texas, talking about my new book, Man-Made. I will be attending the Paradigm Symposium. I'll be exhibiting there. I won't be speaking, but I have a giant but the lineup is phenomenal. Please do check out their site, paradigmsymposium.com. They have all of your favorite people from the Ancient Alien series, including some good friends of the show, Marie Jones, Nick Redfern, lots of great people, paradigmsymposium.com. And then one of my favorite events, the History Haunts and Legends Conference in spooky Jefferson, Texas. That's going to be November 3rd. Okay, any more announcements? No, I think I'm good. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Mory, and we will get him on the air. Throughout his career, Dr. Pressman has examined the potential of the human mind and soul. His continued explorations with traditional psychiatry, holistic spiritual psychotherapy, and Eastern philosophies has proven to be a wonderfully successful alternative to the sometimes limiting constraints of traditional Western psychiatry. His extensive list of case studies online outline the most difficult issues faced by many of his patients, successfully treating patients when traditional Western psychiatry practices and medicines have little impact, if not at all. So please welcome to Just Energy Radio the author of Twin Souls, Finding Your True Spiritual Partner, Dr. Mory Pressman. Hi, Dr. Mory. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. That was a wonderful summary in many ways, several of the things that you said. So thank you.
Wonderful. And if you could talk a little closer to your mouthpiece, because
I'm right here now.
There, much better, much better. You know, they complain in the chat room when they can't hear my guest, and I just don't understand why. So I'm just heading them off at the pass today. But so today we're going to be talking about twin souls, but how did you become interested in this topic, or, you know, the more holistic side of psychiatry in the first place?
Oh, these are two questions. Let me take the second one first.
Okay.
And I'll try to be brief. I was a very, very traditional psychoanalyst, Freudian psychoanalyst, and I still believe in the basic things about it. But my wife is psychic, and so I began to look into it and went out to California, met Stan Groff, and he thought that there was consciousness at birth. My first thought was that was kind of silly, kind of flaky. But I went out to take his workshop, and I found myself on the floor doing this holotropic breathing, and they were pulling me down by my legs, and so I felt like I was being breech birthed, but I knew better because I knew that my head had been all marked up by forceps. Nevertheless, I went home and I asked my dad at the time, "Do you know anything about my birth?" And he said, "Do I? You had a hell of a time. You came out feet first." That was quite a surprise. It really got me started on looking into alternative methods, and I had the good fortune of working with Dr. Elmer Green at Council Grove retreats, and on and on and on. It became my primary interest, which embraces traditional psychiatry. It's bigger than psychiatry, and that's it. That's the first answer. As to twin souls, I was listening to Pat Jowdry. Pat Jowdry is the first author. I'm co-author. And Pat has transitioned now, so I'm carrying on. But anyhow, she was giving a talk, and I was about sound therapy with the Walkman. And then she began to talk about twin souls. I didn't think too much of it, but something about it appealed to me. So we became friendly, although there was big geographical distance. And she told me that she had been trying for 25 years to write this and get it published. Pat was too intuitive, too much up in the heavenly areas, and I was too grounded, but the combination worked, so that we talked and we brought the book forth together. It's been a very popular book.
Well, I think everyone, I shouldn't generalize quite that big, most people on the planet want to try, want to find the person, the right one that they're supposed to be with. I mean, I do psychic readings, and that is the number one question that you're asked. I mean, money, finances, career come a vast second after relationships. And so, I think just as human nature, people have interest in that topic in general.
More than that, love is really the basic thing. I once asked a physicist, Mark Cummings, not I, somebody else asked, and what is gravity? And Mark answered, love. There's a truth in that. It's a great attractive force, but it is what we are. The Plato legend says that we were once one soul, which was split in half, and the two of us are forever after looking for each other. That's what twin souls is about. There is one specific twin soul partner for you, which or who, when you find him or her, will just fill you with love and completeness. Not that you don't have to work afterwards, you do, being human. But that's it. It is a very, very basic longing for love and for completion.
So is that what keeps us looking and creating relationships, is because we're looking for that completion within ourselves?
We're looking
even
for
if we don't find the right person?
Well, it's bigger than that. We're looking for relationships because we are herd, H-E-R-D, animals. We have to live with each other. Want to. Just like a human cell can't live by itself. It needs a community. But beyond that, love itself is the great force. No kidding. Even Hitler had to have love. And so there is that attraction, but there's something very different, very specific and complete about twin soul love. Because you find somebody, all of a sudden, you can't try for it, by the way, you have to wait for it. You have to wait for it just like you wait for inspiration or for a spiritual message. You have to prepare for it by becoming a better and better and better person, meaning more and more mature, more and more rightly controlled, more and more feelingful, more and more altruistically oriented to other people. And when the right moment comes, without your trying, it will descend upon you. And you will have a fiery and almost orgastic love descend upon you and upon the other. You find that you're very similar. You'll have that feeling that you've known each other forever, for indeed you have. You'll find yourself complete for the first time. And you'll find yourself also, this is important, wanting to help others to complete.
How does this differ from from a soulmate? I mean, I think most people, when they think of a relationship, they're looking for their soulmate. How does finding your twin soul differ from the concept of soulmate, or are we talking about something that's synonymous?
No, it's not synonymous. Let me give you Pat's vision first, Pat Chowdhury's vision. She was a rather well-known Canadian author, and she really got tired of the rat race, and all of a sudden she had a vision, which a blinding envelopment of light, and she heard, "This, I am your twin soul," and it gave her this vision of creation being a large group of souls descending in ever and ever smaller packets, like the cell divides into smaller and smaller packets. Each smaller group becoming familiar with each other in family style. And finally there was one cell which split in two, and that's this twin soul cell. Now these smaller groups of souls which become people, or who become people, are really soul mates, near the twin, but not quite the twin. The twin soul is a very specific other that you'll know when you meet her or him, because of this near perfect fit of what you need and that's being fulfilled, or what you're similar in. All your likes are very, very similar. You resonate with each other. Where you find differences, they often complete the other. It's not a matter of living happily ever after. There's still your humanness there, so there are some resistances, but it is really quite a marvelous, ongoing fit without strain. It's an advancement toward the greater soul that you are, or that society can be. And twin souls have a mission, really, to spread their happiness and love and service to others in order to make a better world.
Do you have any thoughts or ideas as to why the separation happened in the first place? I mean, I've heard what's interesting is, not really talking about twin souls. This came out of Rudolf Steiner's work,
Yes.
where there was a separation of male and female, and I've heard that kind of thing in some other places, but no one ever really talked about why. Why did that happen?
Well, there's two things that come to my mind. First of all, as soon as creation was created, there was duality, meaning up and down, black and white, night and day, positive and negative. So there's separation, as opposed to the completeness, which is, our final journey. But the other thing, let's see, what is the other thing? Why is there separation of male and female? In the theosophical writings from Blavatsky and the Himalayan masters, we were once really androgyne, meaning no separation. But as evolution went on, there was a separation of the two. I think it's part of the universal plan, in which we are descended more and more into this physical earthly state where we encounter problems, which are really separations, in order to become more and more educated and strong in terms of our return journey to allness. That's the best answer that comes to my mind.
So let me reiterate what I think I hear you saying is, in this last part especially, is that when we came here to this existence, we were split, kind of as a step down, but so that we could integrate the individual parts so that when it goes back up to a higher level, it's at a better, higher, more complete level.
Well, there's more learning to do. There's more individuality and more conflict when you're separate. Originally we were androgyne, not split, but we were more primitive in that state. And when you are split into two, you are not only more individual, carrying the other within you, meaning every man has femininity, every woman has masculinity. But when you're split and apart, you're not only more individual, but those individual personalities can rub against each other and create conflict. As you learn to transcend those, you build up an experience in conquering separation and building unity. And that's part of the learning. It is said that the angels are waiting to come in here because they can't learn in such a perfect world. And once they come in here, there's the return journey to becoming better and better, gooder and gooder, more and more nearly a master, all the way on up. And I think that we are right now, despite all the difficulties in the world, on the journey toward becoming not only human, but better human, and even next to human, meaning superhuman, more nearly angelic.
I'm angelic. I have a halo.
You are?
Okay. Okay, so I can already imagine that I'm going to get comments in the chat room for that comment. Anyway, listen.
But indeed, there is truth to it. You have, like everybody else has, truly, divinity. It doesn't mean you are totally divine, but you have it.
Well, that's true, and I think, as people become in tune with themselves, become in tune with their soul, become in tune with the guidance that the universe provides to them, it gives them the opportunity to be more in alignment with God, a higher purpose, and the flow and the energy of the universe in general, so that there is less, your issue is less conflict.
Isn't real love divine anyhow? I mean, real love isn't that divine? Isn't the matter of people coming together after 9/11 to help each other kind of divine?
Mhm. It just seems, and that it's difficult for people to be in that place, or that feeling of love, that high feeling of love, tends to be so evasive for us.
That's part of a couple of things, in my opinion. First of all, we're really evolving from animal-like, which is self-protective and defensive of your own territory, into more and more human and together. So that's the first thing that makes it hard to have this kind of community or altruistic love. I've forgotten the second thing. It'll come to me. But the second thing is really the myths of mankind that we're taught in our society. Our society, we're taught to CYA, cover your you-know-what, and to be careful, and to be possessive, and, instead of being sort of innocent and outgoing. There's a place in northeastern India, I've forgotten the name of the small country, but this is a truth, which is a monarchy. And their index of accomplishment is not dollars or money, but rather happiness. This is true. You get units of happiness and units of doing good. And the king is mandated, when the index falls, that is happiness falls, to send out a committee to learn about what's wrong and to do something about it. Now that's a living example, as crazy as it may sound to our society, but imagine that being our country, the USA, or the worldwide. We would be really in a very different state, in which we would no longer be covering our behinds and no longer be in fear. We would be really helping each other and moving on to the kind of superhumans that we can be.
Well, I think if we weren't so busy taking care of, well, that's not where I want to go. It seems to me that when people are doing what they are inspired to do, where their passion leads them, and if we had more people living that life, an inspired life, there would be a lot less problems, as opposed
Absolutely.
to, the people that go to work and hate what they do.
You're absolutely right about that. Do what you love and the money will follow is a book, but it's also a truth. So the first thing is to know what you love, and the second thing is to find opportunity to do it, and the third thing is to help other people to do the very same thing.
I was having a similar conversation with someone about this whole doing what you love, and I made a comment about, but do you really think there are people that are interested in, collecting garbage from out in front of your house?
Well, there are, as a matter of fact. No.
I know, but that was the part that was amazing to me, that there are people that actually like doing this stuff that, to me, would be kind of repulsive.
But if you get into a certain state of unselfish mind, then you can, whatever is at the moment. We are so oriented to material things, to making money, having power, having possessions. And I can tell you, I've treated psychiatrically or psychotherapeutically the family of a president maker. They were involved very much in making President Nixon the president. And the man said to me at a rather advanced age, I have a son-in-law who's 15 years younger. I would give my entire fortune to have his 15 years. Well, that's inevitable if you're just focusing on the material thing. But if you really get into this unselfish, unself-conscious way of just melding into where you are, melding into nature, melding into other people, you become unself-consciously flowing and happy. But not if you're chasing time all the time, as we are. Not if you're chasing getting more. Not if you're chasing fear of being impoverished. It's a much better world that we're chasing when we really settle in and enjoy the things around us. Of course, you have to be fed first. You have to have your basic needs filled first.
You know, and I think another big one is not competing with the Joneses.
Well,
you know, I mean, people look at me and it's like, you know what, I live a modest life. You know, it's like, I don't need to have the newest iPad. I don't need to have this. I don't need to have this stuff because it's really unimportant to my happiness.
You're right.
And people just kind of look at you like, well, what do you mean? It's like...
Yeah, but they're following the Joneses themselves. They're following the myths or the standards they've been taught.
Well, I know. I mean, but then they look at you, you know, but there's, you know, one of the things that I've been looking at a lot lately, which kind of fits in with this, is how much peer pressure there is from the what we consider the norm of society. You know, and so keeping up with the Joneses has kind of become the norm of society. And when you step outside that norm, people start looking at you like, well, what do you mean? You don't care if you have an iPod or not. Like,
you're very right about that, and it's really too bad it's an encumbrance. These people who are keeping up with the Joneses are afraid of not being loved or liked, and that's really a sign of insecurity. I have in treatment a very, very wealthy family, and the gentleman comes to me in a always in Levi's and some kind of a ragged shirt, and even goes to meetings that way. Some of the people sort of laugh at him and look down their nose at him, but there's somebody who said, you know what, maybe he's the richest of us all because he doesn't seem to care. Well, that's true. He is the richest of them all, but that's not the source of his security. He has a personality which is very satisfied with himself, and in fact he could live without all these riches very well, and teaches his family the same.
Dr. Mory, we need to go back to our topic. This is fascinating, but let's go back. We've way wavered off over here. Let's rein it back in. You know, because I know that my listeners, you know, the ones that haven't met Mr. or Mrs. Wright, and I hate to make this so superficial, but, you know, I'm just giving them what they want. Can you explain what, and you touched on this a little bit, what we might experience that can tell us that we are with someone that is a soulmate, or is that even more valued relationship a twin soul?
Yes.
Are there any kind of signs?
Yes. First of all, you're going to be taken by surprise. It's unexpected. But then you find the other person and there's fire in your soul, fire in your body. And you find that you're so alike as if you've known each other forever. And you find that your likes are like each other. You like the same thing. You'll find that you're so comfortable in each other's presence, you don't get tired of each other. You'll find if there's conflict between you, it doesn't matter. It's quickly repaired. You'll find that where you were lonely, you're never lonely again. You'll find where you felt yourself to be missing something within yourself, you're no longer missing anything. Your life is one of fulfillment, but a fulfillment in which you are so happy to be with each other all the time, and so happy also to be doing good for other people. So that's related to the topic we were talking about. You find yourself very secure, not only with the other person, but more in yourself. You find yourself complete. There's a story in the book about Treya Treya, and Ken Wilber. Ken Wilber is really one of the biggest authorities in New Age psychology. And they found each other suddenly, and to their surprise. They had a few months together. They married quickly, had a few months together of extreme happiness, and then 5 years of suffering because Treya developed a very severe kind of cancer. But throughout all of that, they were very happy and bound with each other. When she was passing over at the end of the 5 years, she knew that she would be with him always, and he promised he'd be with her always. So throughout that meeting, there was always this kind of wonderful feeling of love and closeness which prevailed over everything.
And so even through the illness and the adversity and the emotions and all of that stuff that goes into making up life in general, they were able to keep it and maintain it?
But yes, absolutely. You'll find it in the book. It's a wonderful story. But you don't have to have all this problem in order to be happy with your twin souls. You're really gifted when your twin soul appears. You find yourself to be doing what you're doing better, but you're on fire to be together. You find yourself missing each other in the back of your mind if you're separated. You do what you have to do. You do it gladly, but you find yourself incomplete until you're together. You find yourself so happy. If your sex life is so much better, your whole life is so much better, so is that of the other person. This is a unique fit and a great gift.
But couldn't someone say that was being a little codependent as opposed to a healthy relationship?
Can I tell you a little story about a giant?
Sure.
I forgot the name. I forget his name. But anyhow, he was very welcoming of guests, and he fed them, and he played wonderful music for them, and so forth and so on. His name was Procrustes. It's called a Procrustean bed. Anyhow, when the time came for them to go to bed, they had to fit just right in the bed, and if they were too short, he would stretch them until they were just the right size. And if they were too long, he would cut off part of their anatomy so they fit. Well, that's the Procrustean bed. People calling this kind of a relationship enabling, or what was the word, codependent. It's just they're using some kind of a diagnosis automatically without really feeling their way into the greater truth.
Yeah, I mean, I would make the assumption that in this kind of relationship, there would be more of a balanced dynamic than you would see in a healthy dynamic as opposed to what you would see in a codependent relationship.
Absolutely. And in a codependent relationship, the person feels overly sorry, but also inwardly resentful for the person they're supporting. And even the person who is dependent doesn't feel fulfilled and happy. They feel hungry and even resentful for their having to be taken care of. But this other, where two people are really grown up and find completion in each other, is very different. It's a flowing thing.
Is everything happy, joy when these people are together, or like when they first meet, or do they have to kind of work through some rough spots and get to know their personality to make it work and integrate with each other?
Yes, on both counts. First of all, there is this surprising fit and surprising feeling of completeness. But human beings being what we are, there are also complications. But the difference is that the complications are those which you will transcend, pass over, conquer easily.
Can you expound on that a little bit?
Well, yeah. Take the case of Wilbur and Ken and Freya Wilbur, they had plenty of complications in terms of her illness, the demands on his time. He was very busy reading and publishing and so forth, but he was glad to do it, and she was glad to have him take care of her. And she was busy at the same time, despite her illness, setting up training classes for other people that had malignancy. But in other cases, where people argue, each one has to be right, and the more right they are, the more the wall appears between them. But in a mature or grown-up relationship, you don't have to be a twin soul, although you have to be grown up to really appreciate and find and stay with your twin soul. If you're grown up, then you will sort of stop being right for a moment. You'll begin to become the other person in your own mind to see that other person's point of view, and then you'll sort of have a real kind of compromise agreement, in contrast to having to be immaturely right. And that's even more pronounced in a twin soul relationship.
It sounds like healing occurs
in
these kinds of relationships.
Not only healing for the couple, but other people are attracted to them. They feel healed, as people might feel perhaps in your presence, because you are a healer and you're emanating healing energies.
This is kind of a silly question, but can other people pick up the energy vibration of a twin soul couple? And let me just explain where I'm going. I would think that when these two people are together, they're vibrating in a higher they're vibrating in unity, but also since they're together, they would maybe vibrate at a higher level. And are other people, third-party people, able to feel that, recognize that, sense it from these couples?
Yes, absolutely. We all emanate energy, and we all feel energy, whether we're, psychic, overtly psychic or not. You go into you meet somebody, and you might be turned off by him without knowing why. You meet somebody else, and you might be attracted without knowing why. You don't have to be a twin soul for that. That happens all the time. And so you're picking up energy, which we emanate all the time. As you indicate, this energy is even operating at a higher level if you are higher. And the twin souls radiate an energy which is very loving and very attractive to people who really want to gather around them, want to be around them.
They're like magnets.
They are very well said, very well put. They are. They're magnets to each other, and even greater because they're together, magnets to other people.
So this is the question I'm sure my listeners have been waiting for. Since you only have one twin soul as opposed to multiple potential soulmates, although there are a lot of people think you only have one soulmate, how common is it to find your twin soul in one lifetime?
Well, it's not. It's growing more common, frankly, despite of all of our troubles in the world. The world is advancing. There are more people in groups like ours being what we're talking about now, Rita. And so it's becoming more common. If you begin to understand that this present lifetime is really only a chapter in our total journey, then you might realize also, if you don't find your twin soul in this lifetime, the twin soul is hovering overhead, and you will find him or her. In fact, you might even feel the presence of the other, even if not on this plane. But on this plane, the encounter is really magical. It does happen, and it happens more and more often, and it happens very unexpectedly.
Is there any... Back up. So part of what you're saying is that you have a belief in reincarnation. If we don't meet them in this lifetime, there is the possibility that we'll meet them in some other lifetime. With that said, is there any significance to your meeting your soulmate? Is it an indication that you've reached a certain level of spiritual development, or is it just accidental that this connection happens?
No, it's an indication that you've reached a certain advanced level of personal and spiritual development.
That's pretty intense, because it means that not only the one person, it's not like I work on my spiritual self and I work on healing and clearing myself, but it also is dependent on the other half doing that as well.
Right. And there are instances where people find and try to force the fit, meaning they try to convince themselves that this is a twin soul union. But if one is advanced and the other is not, it's not. It's not a twin soul union. And that's not only a use of words, but you don't get this magical heat and thrill and excitement and completion and enduring love. There are instances in which the twin soul union is there. Like I had a woman, and they run away from it because of personal difficulties. I had a young woman who loved Spanish things for some mysterious reason. Mysterious meaning probably past life influence. And she was a Spanish teacher, and then she went over to Spain, and she fell desperately in love with a young man, and he with her. But she came back and was influenced by her family that the difficulties of geography would be too great. So she gave him up. And then she married somebody and had children and had a life, but it was never a fulfilled life. That's fleeing the fit, where you try to convince yourself that somebody is your twin soul who is not, or who's not, just doesn't fit the feeling fully, then you're forcing the fit. And where there is this completion, you're completing the fit.
But I see that happen all the time. I have clients that come to me with their relationship problems, and it's like, but I know he's my soulmate, and then they go on to give me this laundry list of all the issues that are going on that just, they're not even on the same page together.
Right. Well, they're not.
Much less twin souls. It's like I wouldn't even put them in the soulmate category.
Okay. Fair enough. Everything depends on truth, and there is a center of truth within us, which we call our heart or our intuition. If you're really inside honest, you can't as easily fool yourself.
Well, and I think two things. I think a lot of people don't pay attention, because when you tell them, yeah, but blah, 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 and then they go, well, you already knew that. It's like, okay, so, listen to yourself. But two, I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'll say the last 10 plus years, people have really started becoming aware that listening to that voice is possible, or started to open up and start paying attention to their inner guidance in their heart, which I think is phenomenal.
It is. It really is. It is the place of truth. Well, we're taught in science, because I certainly started out as an academician, to laugh at that stuff which is inside of you, to try to be objective. meaning outside of yourself, and it's false, even in science. So anyhow, I learned gradually, very gradually, to respect intuition. And then the more I respected it, the more it grew, and the better it suited my patients, frankly.
I think it works pretty good.
It works good.
Well, one of the things that I really enjoy about having that as part of a practice is that you can know. I mean, I don't even know a different way to say it. You can know when your clients are being truthful with themselves.
Yes.
And then bust them, which is the fun part. No.
And
that
what?
was a joke.
I didn't
and then
hear
bust them on it. It's like, well, wait a minute. But see, you seem like you're probably much nicer in session than I am. I'm pretty blunt with my clients. Anyway, I'm looking at the clock. We have about 12 minutes before our hour's done, which is going way too fast. Is there anything that we can do to prepare or open ourselves up to attracting or finding our twin soul?
Yes. You can work on yourself, really, to become more and more aware of yourself. That means finding out what's good about you and finding out what's not so good. And really courageously tolerating that and then working on it to make it better, like selfishness or excessive unnecessary fear or too much self-consciousness. Just work on yourself so you release the love that you are inside. And when you're really ready and then you're preparing yourself and are ready to meet somebody who is also like that, but who fits the magical fit. And you'll know it. I mean, you're going to be really struck when the relationship happens. You're really going to be burning with love that sustains. You have to wait to see if it sustains as well.
So can we be on the planet and because of our own inner issues be sitting on a bus, next to our twin soul or, participate in a conference or a class or work with them, but because of our own stuff, we just never make that connection with them?
Absolutely. I'll give you an example. A man that I knew, quite advanced in age, very, very settled. Went to a conference and met a woman that was sort of executive. He didn't think that she was very intuitive at all. But there was something that she was able to do for him to advance his cause. He had written a book. She would be able to help him to promote the book. And so they had dinner together. He didn't think much of it. And he didn't think that she looked particularly explosively beautiful. But she began to listen to him as he talked. Said to him, God, I could listen to you all night. And as he looked back at her, he not only felt complimented, but he began to see the softness in her eyes. And then as they began to talk, he learned more and more about some hidden features, how bright she was, how clever she was, how intuitive and feelingful she was, as opposed to her executive personality. And he began to feel on fire, to his surprise. He was a very settled guy. And she, in turn, began to feel the same thing, much to her surprise, because she thought that she was pretty well settled in, able to live alone very comfortably in her occupation and in her hobbies. But there it was. I mean, and suddenly it was there. And it continued and grew as they knew each other. So they were both very grown up inside, very willing to be alone. But there it was. They were ready, and it happened.
That's really cool.
It is cool.
All right, I'm going to throw a hard one at you. But you actually might know the answer to this, but this is just pure conjecture. Is there any kind of statistical analysis or percentage of relationships that happen that are actually twin soul relationships?
You know, there may be, but I don't know. I just don't know it. I doubt it. I doubt that scientists or people who are scientific minded would look into that. And if you're too scientifically minded, you wouldn't even feel it.
Well, if you were too scientifically minded, I don't know that you would believe that we came from a androgynous stock and we're split. I mean, there's a whole lot that they wouldn't believe.
That's true. That's true. You know, we are androgynous right now.
Because we're kind of like yin-yang within ourselves.
Yeah, you know, I have a lot of femininity. It works very well in terms of my being caring and intuitive. And you have a lot of masculinity, which makes you so effective in what you do, so active.
But it balances itself out, I think.
Yes, that's right, and achieving balance is a good thing.
Kind of tied to the question I just asked you, are you aware of any people in history that, in your opinion, were soulmate relationships that, the listeners might be familiar with?
Yes. You know, the Curies, Eva Curie had discovered radium, and her husband were twin souls. Clara Schumann and Robert Schumann were twin souls, had a hard time with her family. And there are other examples in the book.
So did they identify themselves as twin souls, or is it because people looked at their relationship dynamic and came to the conclusion that it could be nothing but?
Well, no, I don't know that they knew or said that they were twin souls. But as you study their history, you'll see all the features that we've talked about today: the perfect fit, the enduring love, the ability to overcome really monstrous difficulties, as the Schumanns did, the ability to work together and really have terrific production in the midst of all that love.
And I'm going to be devil's advocate here for 1 second. And you don't think this could be attributed to spending multiple past lives together and just having this very close bond to the other person?
I think you can attribute it to that people have found each other. They've grown together throughout lifetimes, of which this is one. But if they are separated in this lifetime, let's say they've been together in past lifetimes, and they're separated in this lifetime, one is hovering over the scene. Let me give you an example, may I?
Sure.
This happened to be a very good friend of mine. She has had a wonderful twin soul marriage, and he died of leukemia. Before he died, he said, "I'm going to be advising you on finding your next husband." And as she was, there were many men who would hit upon her. She was very popular. And many men did hit upon her in her widowhood. And none of them was right. But when she met her present husband, she got the signal from Henri, her previous husband, that this was all right. This was good. He had warned her away from the others. And indeed it is good. It's not a twin soul relationship, but it's a very, very good relationship. So, your twin soul is there. And the more as you become more aware of all these things.
See, I love that story. I love that story. You know, I just imagine if my husband passes before me, that he would just be like standing in the doorway of my room, bugging me, watching me, making sure I'm okay, and doing something in a very similar way. So that's cool. Where are we? We just have a brief moment left. So one of the things that you and I discussed before the show was that you have a new book, Living in the Supermind, and maybe you could, I mean, we only have 2 minutes, 3 minutes left. Maybe you could just kind of introduce this book to the listeners, and then we'll just have to have you back on to talk about it in more depth.
Great idea. I'd love that. But, you know, there are some very advanced people on this planet who have all kinds of abilities to heal, to even move objects with their minds, and who just emanate love, and they seem to know how to read your mind. They're called great adepts over in India. But we all have that ability within ourselves if we just keep growing ourselves by knowing ourselves. And this book teaches you how to know yourself. It's applying the psychotherapy principles to yourself and how to grow yourself. And the power that each of us carries to do all these magical things, including magical love, is right inside of us, but it has to be released by overcoming or knowing and overcoming the obstructions that you have been taught, we have been taught by society, such as, you know, not to pay too much attention to your hunches, called intuition, and not to pay too much attention to your love for nature and for other people.
Sorry, I got a little distracted with my other phone ringing. Sorry.
Absolutely.
So I missed the last point.
Anyhow, it's called Living in the Supermind, meaning that we have a supermind within ourselves, but we have to release it, and the book teaches you how to release it.
And so it's kind of a little more hands-on in approach?
Yeah, lots of clinical examples, yes.
Wonderful.
And lots of hands-on.
Well, I'll tell you what. When this radio show comes on, people can become very persistent in wanting to call me.
Yeah.
So if people want to get either of your books, the Twin Souls book, the Living in the Supermind book, where would a good place for them to go to do
Amazon would be just great, amazon.com, or they can go to the publisher, Inkwell, Inkwell Productions Incorporated.
So it sounds like you're still working with...
Go to my website, and they can call me, by the way, MauryPressman.com.
That's where I was going next.
Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Mory Presman, M-A-U-R-I-E, Pressman, Pressman.com. My telephone number's there and on my website. And
excellent. Do you still work with clients?
Absolutely.
Do you work with people over the phone?
Oh, yes.
Do you work with people over the phone? I mean, since this is an internet radio show, it just, you know, a lot of people have the belief, well, I don't live in your city, but, you know, we're in a communication age, telephone.
I'm working with people on the phone.
Excellent.
I love it.
Every day.
Really every day.
Well, Dr. Mory, our time is up, and I need to say goodbye. So thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing this information. I learned a lot.
Thank you.
And I'm sure my listeners learned a lot, too.
Great, and thank you so much for what you're doing and for this opportunity.
No, this was really good. But there's the music, which means I need to go. So thank you, and we will talk again soon.
Very good. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
That was Dr. Mory Pressman. His book is Twin Souls, Finding Your True Spiritual Partner. His webpage is MauryPressman.com. And we will be back with Richard Dolan after these words from our sponsors. Oh, and I just muted.
Just Energy Radio with your host, Dr. Rita Louise, will return right after these messages.